Question for you, chemistry people. What makes salt salty? Right? It is. So it is a chemical, right? It is a what's it called? It's a thing, right? Salt is a thing. Now, can you make salt more salty? Can you add any other chemicals to it to make it more salty? Right? You can add more salt. Right? You can add. This is great. Like teaching. Like Megan, are you proud of me? I'm teaching chemistry here. You laughed way too loud on that one. Right? You can add more salt. You can add more grains of salt. Let's say it's the smallest. I know it's not the smallest you can get, but a grain of salt. You can add more, and you can make something salty. If you go eat chips, you put salt on your chips or your steak, whatever. You can make something more salty, but you can't make salt any more salty. It's just the volume. Salt is salt. Right? And what about, I was thinking about this. What about light? Some of you physics people out there, you'll figure this out, or you'll know this. I don't know what like 1 unit of light is, but light's the same way, right? You can't make light more light. You can color it. You can add more light that will illuminate more, but light in itself is light. Salt in itself is salt. And the reality is what happens is in the identity of light or the identity of salt, there is contained a purpose. Because salt is salt, therefore. Because light is light, therefore. And I was thinking about this when I saw the scripture and it said, if salt loses its saltiness, and that's what got me down this rabbit hole of how can salt lose its saltiness? And the reality is it can't. But it can be not used for the purpose it was intended. It cannot have the effect if it's not applied. And so diving into this, I want to remind us that we are continuing in this book of Matthew. And yes, this is the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount. But my argument was that the Sermon on the Mount might not have been for the crowds. The Sermon on the Mount may have been, crowds may have heard it, but the original intent of the Sermon on the Mount might not have been for the crowds. I believe it is continual formation of the disciples. Remember, he called the disciples, and he said, I will make you fishers of men. And we're talking about that make portion of this. Because here's what I think is true. I think discipleship is learning to live as who Jesus has already declared you to be. Discipleship is learning to live as who Jesus has already declared you to be. When you hear this, Jesus doesn't say, I want you to be more salty. Some of you don't need to be more salty. All right, most of this is for this group right here. He doesn't say be more salty or this is how you become salty. He doesn't say this is how you become light. He says you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. If you have said, I will follow Jesus, then you are the salt. You are the light. Identity has a purpose, and the purpose is contained in that identity. And so that's what I want to dive into and talk about purpose. You're going to hear that word a couple of times. First of all, let's go back and read Matthew 5:13. What does it say? It says, you are the salt of the earth. But here's that word. If salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be trampled and thrown out and trampled underfoot. All right, so this phrase, you are, is talking about the fact that it is a nominative. It is declaring identity. It says you are. That's that word there. And are means a present. You are. It's active. There's nothing like you will be or you should become. The Greek here is very clear when it says you are. I know I keep saying that, but I think that has importance. I think it has importance that this is not something we strive, that Jesus says, if you are my disciple, this is what you are. There's no getting around that. There's no moving around that. You are not should be salt. You are not going to be salt, but you are the salt. This is the purpose. And in this sentence, Jesus clarifies who he's talking to, the disciples, and he establishes their identity and he defines their purpose. But then what happens? He goes on to warn them. If the salt loses its saltiness. Now, this is a very interesting word. Go ahead and put that next word up there. Morante. Let's say morante. That's pretty close. It is where we get the word moron. Okay, so here's what's happening. Saltiness, it says if salt loses its saltiness, it's translated that way, but the word actually has nothing to do with salinity. It has to do with purpose. What's the purpose of salt? Salt preserves. Salt cleanses, disinfects. What? And salt makes things taste, but salt affects the taste of what it's put on, right? That's the purpose. And this word morante, where we get the word moron, means to be ineffective, to be foolish, to not fulfill its purpose. If Jesus was talking about you being a knife, this would probably say, if you've lost your edge, if you've grown dull, you're worthless. He's not talking about salt, he's talking about purpose, that you have a purpose. If you are a follower of Jesus, you have a purpose, and that is to be salt, that is to preserve. That is to protect. That is to enhance the lives of those around you. When he says you are the salt of the earth, he's tying it directly to purpose. Because you belong to him, your life is meant to affect the environments and the people that you are around. Another way of saying is this is not optional influence. It is expected discipleship. It's not optional. If you are a member here, then you stood up here at some point, sometime in the history, and you said, I follow Jesus, and I will live my life and continue to follow through this church, to use my gifts through this church in the community. Friends, look around. This should be a salt cellar. This should be something that contains the salt that goes out into the world. And this is not just something that we strive to. This is not something we take Bible studies to find or do. This is what we are expected to be if we are followers of Christ. He's not questioning whether you are salt. He's telling you to live by it. And what's the warning? If salt has lost its saltiness, you might as well throw it out. I don't want to be on the verge of being thrown out. In the old days, in that time, salt would also have a lot of impurities with it, a lot of things with it, and dirt and things like that. And so what would happen is the salt would eventually go away because of water, and what you were left with just the dirty impurities. He's saying if the salt's gone away, it has no purpose anymore. It's not any good. Friends, we are called to be salt, to affect the world around you. And I have a question, and actually these are not questions. I phrased it wrong. When I say a question, it's more of a challenge. So don't hear these questions and think, oh, this is something I can just think about. This is a challenge. The challenge is this. Where this week will you intentionally influence your environment for Christ? Where this week can you intentionally enhance and influence your environment for Christ? Where at school? Where at church? Where at your work? Where on the golf course? Where on Facebook or Instagram? Where is it that you can preserve the good that you can clean and disinfect and wipe away the bad? Or where can you, because of your faith, enhance the lives of others this week? And there is space on your bulletin, if you're taking notes at home, for you to actually write some ideas. And so while we're here, I would encourage you, maybe write something. Maybe you don't know specific, but you know, hey, I have a chance at school where I'm teaching to do something, or I have a chance where I am. Just think about that. All right, so he moves on. He says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Again, we have this address of you are. Same words. You, talking to a definite address. He is talking to the disciples. He is looking at James or Andrew and saying, you are the light. You are not going to be, you weren't the light. You are the light. And not just a light, you are the light to the world. He clarifies his audience and he fixes his who they are, and he defines why they exist. If you have said, I follow Jesus, and if you are a member at Lake Houston Methodist Church, you have said that, you are the light of the world. How are you letting your light shine? Now here he kind of uses the different words to get the idea of a light. He says nobody lights a light and then covers it up. Right? Can you still see there's light there? A little bit? Right? If we turn all the lights out, would this candle be very effective? No. There's still light. It may be a great light. This light may go to Bible study every week. This light may go to worship every week. This light may do all sorts of things, and it may have a quiet time. This light may be the best light it can possibly be. But if you put it under a bushel, if you put it under a bowl, if you hide it, it is not fulfilling its purpose. What good is the light? Light illuminates things. Light makes things visible. Light brings clarity to confusion. Imagine if Doug turned the lights off in here. I thought he'd done it the first time, just so I get a big habit. Or Megan's turning the lights off in here. Doug is the deal. If Megan turned the lights off in here and we had no light, you would be confused. You would not know where to go, really, because there would be no light coming in. And so a light then illuminates. A light reveals. A light clarifies. And a light under a bowl still exists, but it no longer illuminates, it no longer clarifies, it no longer reveals. And light fulfills its purpose only when it shines. He says, you are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others. He's not questioning their identity. He's saying you're probably a pretty good light. But he's saying, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. The purpose of light is not about drawing attention to yourself, but drawing attention to God. And there are ways that we live our lives full of light and that we can live them under a bowl, right? We can, at work, we can be silent when integrity matters. At home, we can be impatient when grace is needed. In culture, we can be quiet when truth would bring clarity. If you ask your child, we were at a Bible study on Tuesday. And we have a men's Bible study led on Tuesday nights. Men, we encourage you to come. But the question was talking about identity, of saying who you are. And the person who was doing the talk said this. He said, if your child was asked who's the godliest person they know, would they say you? Ask that about anybody in your life. If I ask anybody in my life who's the godliest person that they know, would I be on the list? Is your light shining? The disciples are called to live visibly enough that the people see God through them. And my challenge for you is, what is one setting this week where you will choose to not hide your faith? If light is supposed to bring to light, it's supposed to make things visible and to clarify, what is one setting that you already know now? And you can write it down and say, hey, at work, I'm going to look for opportunities that I maybe before I would have hidden my faith. Maybe I wouldn't have prayed before I ate, or maybe I wouldn't read my Bible. I go in a corner and read my Bible, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, think of an area of your life where you could say, hey, this week I'm going to take one step to shine my light, so that way God is seen. I'll be honest, when I've preached this before, most of the time I stop right there. That's the end. It's a great stopping point. But again, when I've started looking at this as this instructions for the disciples, not just a sermon for the masses, it made me look and go further and see, what does this next part have to do? Because verse 17 through 20 is kind of different, because later on we get into all these, you have heard that it was said, you have heard that it was said, you have heard that it was said statements. And that's next week. So this fulfillment of the law has to probably do something with this light that we're talking about. So what does it mean? It says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For I truly tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. After he declares their identity of salt and light, he warns them about losing their purpose, but then he explains how that purpose is maintained. If the disciples are going to remain effective, they must understand that their relationship to God and to God's commands. And Jesus says, I didn't come to abolish these, but to fulfill them. I think sometimes we kind of confuse or don't understand what those words mean, but when it says abolish, it means this. Abolish means to tear down or demolish or dismantle. And to fulfill means to complete or to bring to fullness. So Jesus is saying that I didn't come, these laws that you have are not just washed away. They're to be fulfilled, but they are fulfilled in me. And the way I am teaching you to live fulfills these. Follow me, do what I ask. I have come to fulfill these. And this is how you retain your connection. Jesus is not replacing God's will. He's revealing it to the fullest meaning. And he says you don't maintain your saltiness and you don't maintain your light by trying harder. Right? How many times have you tried I can just try harder. I can get up earlier and do Bible study. I can go to more Bible studies. I can serve more. I can do more things. I can read more. I can listen more. I can try. And Jesus says, stop trying. Follow me. I will make you. He says, I am the vine and you are the branches. Remain in me. Stay connected to me. Seek after me and fulfill these, because that is how that connection happens. Fulfilling our purpose comes from following Jesus and faithfully being obedient. Fulfilling our purpose comes from following Jesus and being faithful in obedience. I think the temptation is for us to come to church and we live this Christian life and we can get caught up in just doing the stuff, can't we? We can get caught up in I always go to Bible study here, and I always go to church, and I always do this, and I always do this. And sometimes, how many of you have ever driven somewhere, and you got there, and you don't remember half the journey? Right? It's kind of scary, the number of people that admitted to that. But like your brain just goes on autopilot. And I think sometimes our faith can go on autopilot, can it? We just do the things we've always done because we've always done them. And I want to talk to you about possibly being potential and intentional. The question is this: where have I been spiritually on autopilot, and what's one step of obedience I can take? And this is a challenge to just examine your life. We are going into Lent. Lent is a period of self-examination. And maybe that's looking and going, hey, what are the things that I'm doing, even though they are good things, that they're not drawing me closer to God? And that even may be spiritual habits that you have just done over and over again, and it's rote, and you realize that it doesn't have the meaning it had. I can think in my life of things that I did when I first became a Christian that I've forgotten now, that I remember they were so effective, and just over time, I've forgotten them. What are some of those habits? What are some of those things that you can put in your life? Where have I been spiritually on autopilot? And what's one step of obedience that I will take this week? Jesus called the disciples. He said, "Follow me, and I will make you." And when they said yes, they received two things: identity and a purpose. Friends, when you said yes to Jesus, for those of you who have taken that step, and there's some who haven't, but if you have taken that step, if you have said, I'm going to decide, what's the song say? I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. If you have decided, then you have an identity and you have a purpose. You are called to be salt. You are called to influence the lives of those around you, to preserve what is good, to clean what is bad, and to enhance the lives of those around you in Jesus' name. And you are light. You are called, your purpose of being light is to illuminate, to clarify, to guide, to lead. To shine so that God is revealed and others are drawn to that light. Not to you, but to Him. So my last challenge is this. This week, choose one place. One place, work, home, school, neighborhood, wherever. Where is one place where I will live visibly as a follower of Jesus? Now, if you have your paper, you have 4 challenges there. My prayer is, I'm going to ask the band to come back up. And as they do, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take time to pray and to ask God, there have been 4 things that I've written down in 4 areas, and maybe not all of them, but I want you to pray that God will bring one of those to light for you. I don't know which one that is. Just pray that God will bring one of those to light, that He will impress one of those. Maybe that is, where am I intentionally going to influence my environment for Christ? Right? What's an area of my life where I will choose not to hide my faith? Where have I been spiritually on autopilot? And where can I live as salt and light this week? And what I want you to do is, when you write that down, stick this in your Bible, put it in your pocket, wherever. And then next week, tell somebody to ask you, hey, which one of these did you do? Friends, we're not called to come in here and just sing songs and listen to a sermon and go on the rest for a week. We are called here so that we may learn and that we may see how we can put our faith into action, and then we go out into the world. We should be a place that contains salt but doesn't hold it. We should be a place where light is found but is not contained and remaining in this place. Maybe this is something that you need to come up to the rail and pray. Maybe God's leading you in that direction and saying, hey, this is an area where I really want to talk to you about. And maybe that's putting it in your Bible and going home and thinking about it more. Where and how can you be? Because you are. Where do you live and fulfill that purpose? Would you pray with me?